Hello, everyone. This is the Tone Deaf Monk here. I am bringing you one I said I would. I've been listening to these for a while. These are 64 Audios U12t. Thank you to Kevin Davies, goes by Crusty Old Bastard on Hi-Fi Guides. You should check out that blog at Canuck Audioholics. 64 Audio, not Chi-Fi. They're actually American, and they come from Vancouver. Not my Vancouver, but Vancouver, Washington, which is just south of me. So, pretty cool. It's probably why Chi-Fi hasn't stole their technology, and it's fantastic. There's a couple things. This is going to be a different review. I'm not going to do sound impressions per song. These are beyond that. Just a little history of 64 Audio, who they are. You should really check them out. I'm going to post a couple links about their videos. These things are $2,000 USD. Not exactly budget. That's why I'm super thankful for having the opportunity to enjoy these before I have to send them back. Pretty cool stuff. So, couple technologies, and I actually had to read up on this IEM, dive into it a bit more to fully understand what I'm hearing, why I'm hearing it. It's not like any other earphone I've ever tried. So, the history of these guys is basically pro audio. In-ear monitors for musicians, and if you check their list, Beyonce, I mean, I could rattle off 1,000. They have so many that they make custom or universal in-ear monitors for musicians. And then I think somewhere along the line they kind of flowed into IMs for public, but brought the musicality. So by working with all these different artists, I think it gave them a very unique perception, and they sound the way they do, and they design the stuff the way they did with their core technologies to not only work with pro audio and their specifics of that what they needed, but that kind of had trickle down technology to what you and I hear and the overall musicality of these IMs. They're built, incredibly robust, very well put together, extremely solid. Here you can see on the top one of their Apex modules, and if I actually pull it out, there is two rubber seals on it, and you can see that little hole. So this is an Apex 15 module, and I'll go over that a bit more. It comes with three sets in the box, and they're different colors. So one's like a dark black, one's a dark gray, which is what's in here, and then there's a lighter silver one. And I'll go into some of this technology, but just give you a wraparound again before I get into that. So their whole thought processes were, there's unique stuff. There's sound isolation. We need to make sure if you're on a monitor or you're a musician that you don't want to hear either a certain amount of this going on or that going on. You want to focus on what you're doing and your music, and then the engineer can mix in somebody else and that kind of stuff. So that's where these little core technologies really came from. And I think 64 Audio really had fun designing in-ear monitors. and it presents in a way that is extremely unique. So if you ever get a chance to listen or demo one of these, I highly, highly recommend it. Pretty fantastic. Apex modules. These are these little things with these two rubber O-rings that you can buy different ones. They're $100 US, even if you lose one. So they're replaceable. And if I were to pull it out, there's two little places where you pull your finger out. There's inside, there is a little teeny hole with that. And there we go, focus. And the air comes out of that, out of the top of the chamber. It goes through a filter system, and then depending on the size of that little hole is how much air pressure will be allowed to escape. Now, the whole idea of that was to reduce the the pressure that goes into your ear. And I suffer from this probably worse than I know anybody else. Any IEM that does not have venting, I get pressure buildup in my ear, and it makes it uncomfortable. I know there's different ways of doing it with tips and certain things, but that's the wrong way. The right way is doing it the way 64 Audio did, which is basically alleviate some of that pressure instead of it going into your ear, vibrating your eardrum, creating weird resonances. It has a chance to escape. And so the size of that little hole on these different modules allow more or less air to escape and isolation. So from having the smallest hole to medium to larger hole will also change the sound signature, but mostly predominantly in the bass. Not just in volume, but I would say more of texture. So I tried when they first came to me, there was the the smallest one. So that's probably an Apex 20, so 20 dBs of noise isolation. And what happens, well, I'll get more into the sound of those things as later. Let's talk about two more core technologies that I think are pretty fantastic and unique. So one that is cool. So I have different sources, of course, probably you do too, and anybody who has a $2,000 IM is going to have one. But it wouldn't matter whether you had a phone, whether you had a dongle, a DAP, a power station. Because they put a circuit in here that corrects for using any kind of source, regardless of what it is, and its output impedance. So it's going to sound very similar regarding of the source. So, I mean, you can see the application in this in Pro Audio where, you know, you got different pieces of equipment. You plug it into here, it's going to sound the same. Plug it into there, it's going to sound the same. Can I borrow these things? And it'll sound the same. That's pretty cool. And it, again, trickles down to you and I as an audio enthusiast, and it really works well. So it really doesn't matter if you use your iPhone. Obviously, better sources are going to give it different, cleaner, change the sound signature, but they won't sound horrible on anything. There is some IEMs that I've tried and you've tried too that are not that case. TIA driver. Now this is really, really funky. So their TIA driver is one that basically you take a balanced armature. So the U12t is 12 drivers, all balanced armature. And with these bad boys, the TIA driver is very specific, and it goes right in the nozzle. And it has its own chamber and its own tuning. And the chamber itself, unlike a conventional IEM where you have like massive tubes, and this nozzle is really big, and it's thick, and you might or might not get, like, it's not going to help me on that one, is it? All right, whatever. So it's a nice small nozzle. It's got great length. Everything on the design is thought out. But putting that driver right there, and no tubes in this 64 audio, and tubes and adapters and all that stuff, tube length, tube size, tube material, changes the way it sounds. This doesn't sound like any other driver I've heard. And so basically you take a balanced armature, cut off the side of it, or not attach it, or make it in a way where it can resonate without having to be forced through a tube in order to get sound. And it really does something unique and special, not only to the music, but everything else. Same as everything else, a lot of the drivers have their own acoustic chambers for the right volume so they can work at their optimum. And everything works together as a system, a proper crossover network, a four-way crossover network, one for the sub frequencies, one for sub bass, one for mids, one for highs. So very cool. And the way it works. The TIA driver is their high end one that does a lot of the vocals and presence, makes it really special. So that's their three core technologies, and they have more. Talking about going back to these Apex modules change the bass texture, as I said. So started off one with had the most bass, and this is a BA. It just does not sound like it. I've listened to lots of BAs and solid BAs and BA bass, and BA bass typically is fast slam, but without as much decay or note weight as you would get in a dynamic driver. So not only does the bass on these sound weighty, they sound better than any dynamic driver I've heard so far. I'll talk about that actually. So if we were talking about this thing's sound signature, I could go on. I had a real hard time doing my playlist and all that stuff because they just and I think Bennett, even when he reviewed these as well, said the same thing. It's really hard to actually technically listen to them because they're so musical that you just get lost. You'll be there and you'll be listening to this song and then I wonder what it's going to sound like with this song, and there goes your test playlist, and you throw it on this artist or this venue or whatever, and and you just totally get lost in the music and you stop focusing on what it sounds like. Okay, so overall sound signature, 64 U12ts. These don't sound like anything. That's it. They don't sound like anything. They sound like whatever you're putting through it. If you had a really bad recording, it's pretty forgiving. But if you have a fantastic recording, it's going to hear that. They're unique. I'll just put it that way. In bass, we'll start off with it's bass, mid, roll if you want. So bass texture is so unique. Like, okay, so like Bella Fleck, some jazz. It didn't matter what I played, honestly. So this thing takes its time with music. It doesn't feel forced or rushed. It's a very hard thing to describe unless you heard it. So, for instance, I was playing some Bella Fleck, and you hear the bass, but you hear the resonances of the bass. So it's like I'm going to hit this bass note, and I'm going to follow it through to what it should have sounded like. If you're hitting Poncho Sanchez where he's hitting his congos, I just did a review for the AudioSense AQ4, and I said you can't hear any of that. Well, this is mind blowing, and the fact that you can hear him hitting the drum skin at different pressures, like it's that detailed, that the nuances that the 64 audio U12t could bring out is special. I'm gushing here. I'm really having a hard time, but I wanted to describe them to you, and hopefully you get a chance to listen to a set. The bass, that's the way the bass presented, and with the different modules. So like the silver module was more low sub bass focused. The middle module, which was my favorite, the Apex 15, the M15, tightened up the bass, still went low, but it added something to male vocals, or all vocals, that I found, to my ears, the most pleasing. And that's super cool with these things. So you could change the tuning by simply pulling out a module. There's nothing to screw in. My SimGot, I've lost the nozzle twice. I'm training Kilo to sniff it out, so when I lose it, he can go find it for me. Might have to make him chicken flavored, but the changes the overall tuning, and you can get to where you like. Whether if you want a more reference tuning, the black ones, that is going to allow more air to escape, less pressure. It's going to give you less bass, more of a neutral tuning as well. So, and it really works. It's not a gimmick at all. And they also sell other ones that are different from the ones that they came out with. And so again, you're never going to have an obsolete IM either, right? So from the mid bass to the everything is perfect. The tonality wise, the stage is something else as well. So go back to the beginning and talking about, these guys were pretty excited making in-ear monitors and changing this and doing these technologies and stuff. This is the first IM that I've ever heard that basically, when you stick, I don't know, it was an article I read recently where a guy said all IMs inherently suck, because there's one in left, one in right, and how do you get stage and depth and all that stuff? I think that at the core is the hardest thing to reproduce, when something is only left and only right, and then how do you get psychoacoustics of a stage, 3D otherwise, depth, width, height. Well, I can tell you that from listening to these U12Ts, that you get. They made it in a way that they played it to its weaknesses and played it to its strengths. The weaknesses being one's left, one's right. How do you make a good stage out of that? Well, I think they just tuned it in a way where they know you're going to have one left and one right. So let's have fun with it. And that's the way the stage comes off. It's like it doesn't pull you left, doesn't pull you right, doesn't keep you centered. It just, every song is vastly different. It doesn't have a sound stage persona. It is a chameleon. It will change whatever song is going through it and have a shitload of fun doing it. That's exactly how I heard this thing. At 1 minute, it would be, something going on over here. Again, there's that second, third order harmonics, the resonances of the instrument. It just seems to take its time. If there's a bass note, you go boom, and you hear the resonances, and then the next note, and the next note. It's like breathing in between in a pace that aligns perfectly to the music. Same as the highs. Everything else is there. Absolutely no sibilance. As much highs as you can put in a recording or how you want to do it, and it just comes off fantastically in such a natural musical way. That's the U12t from 64 Audio in a nutshell. A chameleon that basically, changes whatever goes into it, comes out of it, and you can change it a bit through the Apex modules, but you're going to get a musical listening experience beyond your expectations. I have never listened to a $2,000 set. I have a couple $1,000 sets, and when I started this a few years ago in IEMs, my first one was a $14 open heart IEM, those blue resin ones, that I was blown away. And I was like, wow, how is this thing fantastic for $14? And then my horizons expanded with other ones through this journey. And it's a real treat to listen to something like this, because when you hear people talking about top of the line or TOTL, that top of the line, for me, there's two things with that. One is this is the best they can make, and the other one is this is top tier product that doesn't get any better regardless of how much money you spend. Now, they make U18s, they make all kinds of even higher ones than this one. And then they're custom in-ears with the 3D molding and stuff like that. Very funky if you get a chance to check out their videos as well. So, when you're at a top of the line, I would consider these top of the line. I can't, and there might be others I'm going to hopefully experience, but I spend $100 on sale for those AudioSense AQ4s, and I have buyer's remorse, and I just don't like them. I just think they're badly tuned. If you spent $2,000 here, I can't see anybody going, God, I spent more on these earbuds than my first 5 cars, right? It wouldn't be the case. It would be like, yeah, I've got all of my money and more right here. $2,000 well spent. That's how good they are. And I'll say it again. I'm ever so grateful to experience this, and it is an experience more of than anything else. I mean, the U12Ts present in a way that is such a different. It is not an IEM that goes, okay, left, right, and it does this kind of 3D holographic stage. It's just a fun musical experience, whatever you're putting into it, music-wise, source-wise, it's going to put out in such a beautiful way. So that's it, really. I mean, I had notes for all my wow factors. It's I talk about just one thing about I'm a stage freak. I really do love my stage, and I kind of judge it on that too. And I thought, okay, and I just came from those other ones and where I had like zero stage, no presence, no nothing, and put these in, and I put Metallica S&M2 with the San Francisco Orchestra in this massive venue, and Lars and Metallica are playing right in the center, and the orchestra is playing virtually wrapped around him. And the way they did the recording and the microphones facing the orchestra, Metallica, Lars, and the audience. On some IMs, you can get a great sense of space. This was a surreal experience where you honestly felt like you were in the audience 100 feet away, because that was the best tickets you could buy. And you were there with 20,000 other people that were having a magical experience. That's how realistic it sounded. Yeah. And I love live recordings too, and I just love that sense of space. And probably because I love concerts. And the first one IEM that I've ever heard that can reproduce that kind of special mojo. Again, it just has to do all with their tuning, their technology, their tubeless design, their chambers, their circuit. It's fantastic. That's it for me right now. One last one. I said big notice is don't forget to talk about Keith Don't Go Live. Niels Lofgren is a guitar player. He did this recording in a live recording, and he uses acoustic guitar. And it's bone chilling realistic. That's how good this recording is on these IEMs. At the beginning, when he's playing it, the strings of the guitar are, yeah. And then he switches to his vocals, and you totally have your brain goes, oh my God, I'm listening down here to the guitar, and then you hear his vocals, and you get this sense of the two different microphones, easily to pick out. And when you're listening to it, and you hear the guitar down here, but you hear his vocals here clearly, in a different height. And that's the way this thing did with not just this song, but honestly with any song that I listened to. It just was different from every song, track to track, artist to artist, venue to venue, and it just did everything in a different magical way that was... I wouldn't never call these things 3D, because they could present in a single plane, they can present super left and right, high, whatever, or this massive venue, and it changed per song. So it didn't have a sound signature that you could pinpoint. It just did everything differently for different music. I'll leave with one last thought that I kept thinking to myself before I have to box these up and send them back home is that it was just a musical experience that I am, yeah. I ended up, I don't know if you care what tips I used. It doesn't matter, but as long as you get a good ear fit, it was super easy with the tubeless nozzle that was, easy to put on, but so you could get proper isolation and fit. Again, probably had, and they talked about it in one of their videos where they, you could make sure that this fit for everybody. I mean, it would kind of suck if you spent $2,000 US on an earphone and it doesn't fit. And I'm sure that's happened to many people. Not with these. Anyway, this is the Tone Deaf Monk. Thank you for allowing me to share with you my impressions. Thank you to Kevin for loaning me these. And up next, I have a Legato coming in. I have it is MS5 Dark Angel coming in. That's pretty cool. Multi dynamic driver and Sonyan. Balanced armatures. I have an ISN EST50, another dynamic driver, balanced armature EST driver coming in that I'm going to compare to my Let's Shure EJ07Ms head to head. I think that's going to be pretty exciting as well. So thank you for watching my channel. Stay tuned and stay safe. Love you. Cheers. Out.